Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. I'm your host, Helen Bonova. And today, the topic that I want to talk about is that come up in several conversations very recently with some humanitarians. And the topic is when we think about transitioning, we have this feeling of it's going to be make it or break it type of situation. In other words, it's a very high stake thing that we are so afraid to make the wrong move, basically, right? And I was discussing this with one of my clients where she was saying that every time she thinks about, okay, I want to do this, I'm going to go and do the other thing that I want to. And in her case, it's the family that she wants to prioritize. She wants to create family and be with loved ones and stay closer to the parents. And then as soon as she thinks about it, she just has this keep feeling like, oh, it's going to be make it or break it. So you really think about what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? Now, I wanted to really talk about what happens when we make decisions out of make it or break it, or it's such a high stake that we really need to be sure what we're doing. What happens when we do that? And also, what are the things that we might not be really thinking about when we are approaching transitioning from that perspective? And then how you could approach it differently, or at least look at your options in ways that maybe currently you are not really looking at, right? So let's start with the make it or break it high stake decision making process. If we're leaving, then our immediate reaction that our brain wants to offer to us is all the things that we're going to lose if we transition, right? That's usually where our brain goes. And that's very understandable considering how much of the success, how much of the career, how much of the work that we have done. We have done all of those things, and now we're so afraid that we're going to lose if we go and start from scratch, right? That's one way of looking at it, and that's why it feels so much high stake. And in that conversation, when we're looking at all the ways of things that we're going to lose, we're also not really think about what are the things that we're gaining by transitioning, right? What are the things that we are telling ourselves now that is important to us and therefore why we're doing it? We're not really looking at how much of the things we gain, and also the other thing that we're not really looking at is when we think and fixated so much on what are the things that we're losing by leaving this place where we are, right, in the humanitarian sector, then what we're also not really doing is what are the things we're losing by staying in the humanitarian sector, right? Again, I have no intention to advocate for which one way or another. I'm always an advocate for doing what really feels true and aligned to doing in your life, right? Whatever that is. If that means leaving, then amazing. If that means staying, amazing as well. Either way, you can make it work. But I really want you to think about like when you are having with yourself this conversation of what are the things that you're losing by leaving the humanitarian sector, you also could think about what are the things you are losing by staying in the humanitarian sector, right? So if you're saying that it's important for you to have a create a family and be next to parents and other loved ones, then all of those things you are believing that you cannot really have currently while doing this, going from one mission to another, right? The other thing is really that what are the things you will gain by leaving the humanitarian sector as well as staying in the humanitarian sector as well, so that we have the fair assessment of what are the things that we're willing to lose or wanting or okay to lose, what are the things we're gaining by leaving, and also what are the things we're gaining by staying where we are, right? And this, I think, the conversation that we really need to have when the fear of losing is so not heightened, so that we're able to look at things more in a balanced way rather than looking at it from the prism, from the lens of I'm losing a lot of the things and I can't really lose that, therefore I'm just going to stay. That would be a very biased, and of course we are, making subjective decision anyway, right? But it would be unfair to ourselves to make this type of decision from make it or break it mindset. Now, I really want us to think about where this mindset comes from, right? Where this mindset of make it or break it, high stake decision making comes from. As we said, that it usually comes from fear, but also obviously fear of unknown of where we're going, right? Fear of not being able to make it in the unknown world. And that's also where it's coming from. And therefore, our brain is automatically trying to protect us from making a mistake, protect us from failing, protect us from doing things that we don't want to do, even though a lot of clients tell me that when they are in their humanitarian sector, they have gone through a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures, and they have been able to recover from it and get up and do the things, and it was all fine. But because it was in the protected environment or in the known environment, therefore it's okay that we're failing and not many people need to know. And even if they do, we just feel like, yeah, this is just how you build a career. This is just how you become professional. This is how you get better at it. But as soon as we do that in another setting that is unknown to us, that we are not really familiar, then it becomes so much more heightened. Again, the fear attached to it, right? So, what we then do oftentimes when we are approaching things or decision making from fear, from heightened risk or vigilant feeling, or in other words, not safe feeling of being able to make a decision, then obviously we're not going to make a decision. And not only we're not going to make a decision, unfortunately, a lot of the times the consequence of this is that we just keep postponing the life we want to live, right? And that's, I think, something that I keep repeating to everyone that I can talk to and everyone who can listen to me, to say that if we keep being in this decision of it's very high stake, and if we're going to make the one wrong move, then everything will fall apart, then obviously we're never going to be able to make a decision, right? Now, don't get me wrong, that there are great things about thinking of things as high stake, right? So high stake could be a high stake event, high stake conversation, high stake decision making that affects so many people's lives. So we better think through things well. We better do our analysis well. We better prepare ourselves properly. Amazing. We can use all of those advantages of high stake approach. But the way that I think a lot of humanitarians are approaching transitioning, though, is from this place of high stake, I will lose it all, right? And when we are in this high stake, I will lose it all, obviously, we're not going to make a decision. We continue reinforcing fear even more and more to a point that we just paralyze ourselves and we're just going to stay where we don't want to be. At the same time, keep feeling like we're stuck. So therefore, my goal in this episode is really, on the one hand, recognizing and being aware of this is how you're approaching it, meaning that you're approaching it as only looking at what are the things you're going to lose versus looking at what are the things you're going to gain. And also to bring to your awareness that when we are in this, I'm going to lose it all, so I better like hold on to it. We also tend to look at other things that we don't like, other things where we are maybe suffering emotionally, maybe we are not really satisfied with what we're doing, maybe we're not really satisfied with anything except the stability of money or stability of that we are doing something in the society. and we're not really looking at all the ways of how, what are the things that we're also be losing and not really having in our lives anymore. We don't really think and look at that. And in fact, if anything, we may even glorify or try to justify why all the problems that we have been tolerating for years is okay to continue tolerating it, right? So therefore, when we start looking at things from high stake, I'm going to lose all the amazing things, we're also not really looking at um, how much of the high stake that our emotional well-being is, how much of the high stake our mental well-being and our relationship that we are jeopardizing by not really having it or not even creating it. We are like not really thinking about those being high stake, right? The relationship that we want to go for, the spending more time with our loved ones and parents that we want to, that are so precious, we're not really thinking of those things, of those moments, of those experiences as high stake in those moments, because the fear of loss is always going to be a lot harder to handle for our brain than fear of loss, losing those precious experiences with our loved ones and a family that we want to create. Right. So therefore, I really want us to make a decision not from fear. As you know, that my philosophy always never make a decision out of fear, but make a decision out of you feeling this confidence, this belief in yourself that you can make either way work, and you can make the transitioning and being with your loved ones and also doing the thing that you love and being paid. You can make that work if you really wanted to. And let's work on that and building that identity, building that self concept of being the person who can do that, and then make a decision about transitioning so that it doesn't become so much a high stake. And another is really allowing and learning more about all of the fears that you are experiencing or fearing, right? You're fearing fear basically. So instead of fearing fear, let's explore fear and understand fear and regulate our emotions so much so that when we are making decisions, it's no longer whether this or that or whether make it or break it. It's more like I believe that I can make this work, and let me find all the ways how to make it work and what I need to get ready for to do that, and how am I going to get ready for to do that, right? So this is where I would love for every one of us to make decision from that is coming from a very powerful place that recognizes how powerful and resourceful and skillful we are to get to what we want to, and also we don't need to necessarily lose things, but we can just build on the skill sets that we have. We can transfer the skill set that we have. We can um, use the skill set and add to those skill sets even more to get to what we want to, and that's what I really want to advocate for. Now, I want to give you an example of this is not related to a humanitarian, but I've known this person that is very amazing in my life, and I don't really want to share anything more than how much I adore this person. And the story that always served me, her story served me as an example for my life in so many ways, is where she was she never had education, and she always depended on her husband, and they had a house, and then as soon as um, they were married and they have children, and then as soon as the he was married and the parents and lots of relatives from his side started saying that she has no right to live in this house belongs to our family, this house needs to be sold out and distributed to all of them equally except this person, and therefore there were lots of conflicts around this house, um and this even like created so much tension between the couple, so much so that um, it was becoming so abusive to the point that she couldn't really handle living in that house. And it was damaging her emotional, mental well-being, physical well-being, because he was aggressive and violent and all of this, and all because of this house. Huh? and and she also felt like she cannot really lose the house, because house represented the stability that she always wanted, and she felt like she has nowhere to go. And of course, without any education or job, and always depending on that husband, then she just felt like this is the only thing I have left. I can't lose this. If I lose, I lose everything. And therefore, she tolerated lots of violence and lots of violence, not only like physical violence, verbal abuse, not only from her husband, but from all the relatives around that. And as soon as the husband died, interestingly, that lots of other relatives who also wanted to have that house, they all died. And then she was so suffering from all this mental, emotional abuse, that she was hospitalized and couldn't live in the house anymore for a long time. And as I look at and hear this story, right, and as I reflect on the story, it just has so many parallels with um, the high stake conversation that we're having, right? And of course, in no way I'm saying that humanitarian sector is comparable to that husband or the relatives, even though we have a lot of verbal abuse and toxic environments happening, and I'm not saying they're comparable, but there are a lot of elements where her decision to always stay and have the stability was that her understanding of stability was so narrow, and it was only about the material thing of this is the house and this house gives me the stability and I can't really go anywhere else, kind of this narrow way of defining stability, even though the stability that she really needed for all those years were the emotional and mental stability, right? And that's what she kept foregoing, forfeiting for the sake of having the house. And that's where, after everything it was finished, meaning the people who were always trying to get the house all deceased, and their children didn't really care about the house at all because it had nothing to do with their children. So therefore, in the end, this person then left without the, like, that. Yes, the house is there. Yes, she could live there, but she doesn't really want to live there anymore. And every time, excuse me, every time she goes to live there, she just gets sick. So therefore, she just tries to not live there. At the same time, all of these years, I think about 30 or 40 years of her life fighting and all of this, in the end, it felt like she lost almost everything, right? And this story served me as a way to always learn my lesson of how I never want to be attached to anything materialistic, be it a house, be it insurance, be it, I don't know, car, or be it money or whatever. Because the more I get attached to it, the more I don't want to lose it. And the more I don't want to lose it, I forego everything. I lose all the opportunities of how I could actually get better or even better off doing other things. I lose sight of all of those things, and I just hang on to this so much, to the point that it becomes so detrimental to my health, to my well-being, that I don't even recognize that I was actually losing out on all the other things that I could have had in life. And I didn't, because I outsourced my stability to this thing, right? Or I believe this is the only thing that gives me stability, when in reality, stability is something that I create. And when it comes to stability, we could think of stability, not only in terms of where we live and physical stability, but also our mental and emotional stability. And for that, we want to have our lives thriving, our work is meaningful, that we contribute and we have meaningful relationships and we build families. This is all part of stability, right? And when we just exclude all of this and just focus on one thing that we're going to lose because we're telling ourselves that this is a high stake thing and we can't really make a wrong move, then obviously we're not going to be able to use all the opportunities we have. We're also not going to recognize how much actually power and the abilities that we have to go for what we want, and we're not going to take into account any of those things. And that's really my goal, is to bring aware to your awareness as to when you are making something high stake, make sure that you are understanding what that is, what's their impact on it, and look at not only what are the things that you're losing, but what are the things you're gaining, and what are the things that you are losing that you actually don't want to have, right? And this is what I really want to um, bring to this table by talking about it. So if you would like to work on this with me, I would love to invite you to do this individually. I have some sort of spots open, and or in a group with other amazing humanitarians. So absolutely send me a message in whichever way. And I would love to get in touch with you and to work on this. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful week.